Today, the creep returns. Hello and welcome to Rotted Review of the Day, and today I am taking a look at the 2017 sequel to Creep, Creep 2. 11 days ago I did review the first one, and I will warn everybody here that although this is a spoiler-free review for Creep 2, just inherently by the measure of discussing this movie, it is going to be full of spoilers for the first movie, Creep. So, if you haven't seen that one, you might want to turn this off. But moving on, I watched it, and what I came away with was a movie that didn't quite have the same impact as the first one, but replaces it with a constant who is messing with who aspect, and I find it to be a very worthy entry into the series. But to talk about it more, I'm going to have to get into the categories. As always, 4 different categories, each one worth up to 25 points for a total possible score of 100 points. And the plot of this one I gave a 17 out of 25. This follows the Creep character from the first one of Joseph, who is now going by the name Aaron, which I thought was a nice little nod to the first one, the fact that he took on his victim's name. It kind of showed how much Aaron had an impact on him, at least that's how I interpreted it. And he puts out an ad very similar to the first movie. He needs a videographer to follow him around, and this time Sarah is the character that takes up the mantle, answers the call, and goes out to meet him. And when she finds him, he does switch things up a fair bit. He admits straight away to being a serial killer, and that he has lost the zeal for life, that he is approaching 40 and is suffering some midlife crisis blues as a serial killer. The killings no longer mean as much to him. They don't quite have the impact anymore, and he thinks that maybe this will be the shot in the arm that his little side career needs to get going again, by having a documentary kind of work with him and open himself up to the idea. And not really believing him, at least on surface level, she just goes ahead and goes along with it. Yeah, sure, why not? I'll follow you around. At the very least, she will get some footage for her web series, and that is why she is really there, is to have another entry into a web series that she does, where she answers Craigslist ads for various encounters and so forth. If a guy puts out kind of a creepy ad for he needs maternal coddling, then she will answer that and film it and just kind of make a little bit of a documentary series on the odd folk that make these ads. So that's really why she's there, not so much as a freelance videographer. And having this guy that she doesn't really believe is a serial killer in her grasp, it is rife for exploitation for her web series. So she is A-okay making this happen, and they continue on with the day together, very much like the first one. And the nature of the first one really is not there anymore. We know the Aaron character, the Joseph Aaron character, and we know what he's capable of. And that really was kind of the crux of the first one, as Joseph and Aaron from the first one were going through their paces. We really didn't know. We knew that Joseph was creepy, and we knew that he was a little unhinged, and there was something a little off about him, but we really weren't entirely certain to what extent. And now, throughout the entirety of this movie, we actually do know that. We do know that he is capable of killing very maliciously and quite often. So it is nothing that is foreign to us anymore. So the impact comes more from the fact that Joseph/Aaron makes a deal with Sarah that in return for being a videographer for this, that he will not kill her over the next 24 hours. It'll just be so on and so forth. And, that it would be counterproductive to the goal of having this video done. So you kind of replaced the what is Joseph capable of dynamic with will he keep his word dynamic, and then the subterfuge of like I said earlier, who is messing with who. All told, I thought that there was a really great way of keeping this fresh. It managed to replace one conflict dynamic with another, because it is impossible to replicate the first one just inherently. Personally, when the movie was all said and finished, I'm going to say this as spoiler free as I can, but I really wish that there had been a bit more layers to this onion in terms of subterfuge, but I'm not marking it down any points for that. Just the simplicity still worked, and honestly, it actually worked better in terms of realism, even if it did sacrifice some potential intrigue. So 17 out of 25 points, and happy to give it that high. Intent, I gave it 20 out of 25 points. This dipped down a little bit just from the first one, only so because the suspense level really inherently, when the dynamic shifted, so did the measure of what we experienced. The suspense level just wasn't quite there from the first one, but it did tell a very rich story with very believable characters, and got the creep factor still going for it. So all told, very, very impressive, even if it did dip down just a little bit from the first one. The acting, I gave an 18 out of 25. Mark Duplass reprises his role as Joseph/Aaron, in this case Aaron. And we're introduced to the character Sarah, played by Desiree Akhavan, and I thought she did a really spectacular job. She played very well in a lot of these improv roles with Mark Duplass, and I mean, it's the same as the first one, where they have kind of an open, structured script. They basically know generally what they're about to be doing, and then the actual dialogue of the scene is improv to get there. And I thought that they worked really well together in that regard. The only one that I really didn't care for so much is the character of Dave. And we're introduced to him very early on, and he's definitely not in the entirety of the movie. We only actually probably get about 5 minutes of him to kind of intro the movie into what it's going to be. And it's played by Karen Soni, and I don't know, it felt a bit like the improv nature of his dialogue was very forced. I was really I was watching that, and I'm like, ow, I really hope that's not prevalent throughout the film, and thankfully it wasn't. So I think it actually probably would have gotten a few points higher if it weren't for that, but it was a pretty minor part, so really not a huge dip there. The technical, I gave a 16 out of 25. Very adept and well made, but there's really nothing groundbreaking about it. I think that's just more of a natural symptom of having a first-person view, low-budget picture like this. There's only so many tools that you can use when you confine yourself to that small of a box. There's, not a lot of camera angles that you can go through because it's supposed to be first-person. There's not a whole lot of effects that you can do because it's a very grounded in reality, low-budget movie. But technically, it was adept, and I really have no complaints with the camera work or the editing. So plus side of average there, 16 out of 25. And that gives us a total of 71 out of 100 points. If you like the first Creep, I really do think you will like this one. This managed to suffer from some natural aspects of a sequel, i.e. knowing what we know, having some of the mysteries and the scares suffer because of that. But it still manages to rise above it and turn out a movie worthy of an entry into this series. But that's my opinion on it. I really thank you for joining me here today. That's my review of 2017's Creep 2, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Remember, next time you want to watch a horror movie, first make sure that it's good and rotted.